Hello, this is Julia, and I'm so happy you're popping by for my Christmas card series. This card is going overseas to a dear friend, and I want to make something special and magical. So I start off with pouring resin to make snowflakes. I know a few things about my friend that inspired me. She loves snowflakes, she loves snowmen, and she loves purple. And although I only ended up using one tiny resin snowflake on my card, it got me going. I have this piece of cardstock and I want to make it into a frame, so I cut out the middle part and use a ruler to decide where to cut, because I want 4 pieces of cardstock for my frame that will look like old wood when I'm finished. My first step in creating a wood-like texture is to use a scoring board and a point tool. I have done this before in 2 previous videos. I score the pieces of cardstock to look like wood. I turn the paper more than I turn the tool, making my marks without sharp lines until all the random scorings have made my paper look like wood. Then I pull out all my brown Distress Oxide inks and a few grey and some black. I smush the brown ink pads down on my worksheet, spray with water and dip my wood pieces into all that ink. I build up the layers by smushing and picking up ink with my cardstock pieces, drying in between and smushing more ink until I'm satisfied with the color. I ink blend with Distress Oxide ink in ground espresso and dab on the grey weathered wood to make the brown shades more muted. Finally, I use black soot to go over all those raised scorings and ink up my edges to make each piece of wood pop. For my background, I want a purple sky and bring out all my purple Distress Oxides. I start with shaded lilac and then wilted violet. I go back and forth while the ink is still wet to make this blend creamy and seamless. I blend in some seedless preserves and finish off with the dark purple Dusty Concord, always going back to smooth out the blend several times before I'm happy with my sky. I splash on lots of water droplets for texture and to start building up the snowfall that I want on my card. I want my friend who is getting the card to feel special, so I pull out an old stamp set I bought on second hand. It's from Simon Says Stamp. It's a stamp set with snowman, about friendship, and I pick one snowman to be her and one to be me. I use a stamping platform to be sure of my stamping, and use archival black ink to ink up my stamp and stamp my first snow woman. The person before me who had this stamp set cut masks that I now can use to make my snow friends hug. I pull off my mask and do what I always do with any image I'm using. I go around the edges with a black marker to make the image fit in more seamless. I use glue on a piece of scrap paper to hold my frame together while I work on other things. I color my snow women with Arteza realbrush watercolor markers. I use the lightest of the blue to go around the edges of the snow and a wet brush to blend the color out. The snow woman representing my dear friend Linda gets a hat in 3 shades of purple, going from the lightest to darkest and back again. I color the squares on her scarf with 2 groups of purple, alternating every other square, and each square is shaded with 2 or 3 shades of purple. My snow woman gets a blue scarf and hat, and they are shaded with 3 shades of blue. After the blue, their noses are colored with yellow and an orange marker. Okay, let's do the background. I have this second-hand background stamp from Heroarts with snowflakes, and I use a stamping platform to save myself from heartache. I have this embossing powder from Wow in white pearl, and I use an anti-static powder bag to make sure the powder only sticks where I stamp, and I stamp the snowflakes in Versamark embossing ink. I cover my stamped snowflakes in the Wow white pearl embossing powder and heat set until melted and shiny. The elephant in this video is that my background stamp only covers my background partly, so I solved that by using an embossing pen with sticky embossing ink and filling in the snowflakes where my stamp ended, and covering my drawings in the same embossing powder and heat set. I have these snowflakes stamps on an acrylic block, and I fill in the sides with the snowflakes and emboss them with the same powder as the rest of my background. Here you can see the finished embossing, and I bring out the same purple Distress Oxide inks to go over the background, and I use a paper towel to buff off any ink on my snowflakes. Speaking of snowflakes, I have some snowflake dies and use my die cutting machine to cut out those bold, beautiful snowflakes. I use Distress Oxide inks in tumbled glass and shaded lilac to ink up the edges and the nooks and the crannies on the snowflakes with light blue and purple ink. Then I use a glossy varnish and paint it on the snowflakes before I drown them in glitter to get that frosty look. This time it was easy to find a sentiment for my friend. In the snowman stamp set I found the sentiment, magical moments happen when friends stick together, and I heat emboss it in white on purple cardstock. It's time to start putting this card together, and I have my frame and this heavyweight acetate. I also cut 3 frames in fun foam and 1 in black cardstock for lots of dimension. I'm attempting a shaker card, so I use double-sided tape to secure the acetate and glue all the frames together for all that dimension. I only put liquid glue on the outside of my frames to avoid the shaker filling sticking to the frame. I glue my snow women to the background and give it time to dry while I attempt to tuck in all those frosted snowflakes into the frame. I want it to feel like we are looking out through the frosted window to see the snow women. While I work on the window, I want to shout out to my friend Linda and her granddaughter Madison. Stay safe, girls, and have the happiest of holidays. I lay out all my resin snowflakes, but finally I decide on only one purple snowflake next to the sentiment. I put double-sided tape on the back of the frame and start filling my shaker card with rhinestones, pearls and sequins. Finally, I put liquid glue on the outside of the frame together with the double-sided tape to make sure it will hold, and I put my window frame over the background. Now all I have to do is to glue down my sentiment and the snowflake. And as a last precaution, I take a cotton ribbon in purple and glue it down around the edges of the frame to hide my layers and to make the card more sturdy. My Christmas card is finished and I hope you feel inspired to pop by soon again, and I send thoughts of happy and safe holidays to you all. Until the next time, happy holidays.